During Memorial Day at Lowe's, shop household must-haves for less. Save $80 on a Charbroil Performance Series 4-burner grill to chef up something special. Plus, get up to 45% off select major appliances to keep things fresh. Our best lineup is here at Lowe's. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 5/27. While supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowes.com for details.
Visit your nearby Lowe's on East 17th Avenue in Hutchinson.
Hey now. Oh yeah, look at my life. Hey now, yeah. Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road. Oh yeah, look at my life. Hey now, yeah. Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road.
Hey now. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Scott Fox After 9. A short work and school week is in front of us here. It is Tuesday already. Welcome to the 19th of May. Now, coming up on this pod, there's not a whole ton going on. If I'm being honest, the May 2-4 weekend was kind of quiet. All of the typical newsmakers were doing things other than making news, and that's just fine with me. Today on the pod, I'm going to be talking a little bit about sports. I'm going to be talking about alcohol, and I've got a couple of interesting things that came out of America, not the least of which people are starting to do a deeper dive into the alien files. And I'm going to get to all of that and more coming up on this episode. First off, let's start off with some good news. I guess, as a Toronto Maple Leafs former fan, currently not affiliated with any team, I'm still not thrilled about saying this, but you gotta congratulate the Montreal Canadiens on the effort.
Well, Montreal's going to work it out. Carrier ahead. Over the line comes Newhook. Shooting. Scores! Alex Newhook! Ole! 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 And Montreal is going to play Carolina in the Eastern Conference Final.
The Montreal Canadiens are going on to the Eastern Conference Final, just like that. Game 7, overtime, in Buffalo, and the Habs got it done. Congratulations to them. Now, if you're a regular listener of Scott Fox After 9, you know that not only am I a huge lacrosse fan, I'm also a diehard fan of the Toronto Rock. I have worked for the team for 11 seasons now, and this weekend, it finally happened.
It's been a long time coming for Jamie Dowd, Matt Sawyer, and this Toronto Rock franchise. But a heck of a couple of drafts have given this team the fortune to be the best in the National Lacrosse League. 5 seconds to go. Nick Rose finally has his championship, and the Rock are NLL champions.
You know, I should have gone to Halifax this weekend. I was at the game at TD Coliseum in Hamilton on Friday. I saw them won. I knew they were one win away from winning the cup, and I thought, Scott, you got to do it. You got to go to Halifax. And I talked myself out of it because I was being cheap, and the flights were not. So I didn't go, but I watched it on TV, and not even knowing how you're going to handle that moment. I have never had a team that I truly cheer for win a championship. When the Raptors won, that was unbelievable, but I wasn't the biggest basketball fan back then. I've never seen the Buffalo Bills win a Super Bowl. I have seen the Jays win a World Series, but I was in high school. I've never seen the Leafs win a cup, but I saw the Toronto Rock win the NLL Cup, and I could not be happier, especially for the players, the veterans that have been hanging on for a long time trying to get that ring. For the ownership group, Jamie Dowick and his family, just unbelievable people. Nobody deserves it more than them. I already had a few people reach out and ask me, hey, when is the parade going to be? When is the big rally? Unfortunately, I don't have that information yet. I think when you win it on the Sunday of a long weekend, it makes it a little more difficult to get in touch with City Hall, but I imagine those conversations are taking place now, and the Toronto Rock are coming back to Hamilton/Toronto. I know it's kind of a weird thing. They're a Toronto team, but they play out of Hamilton. Either way, they got the cup. They are 2026 champions. Today, what's going on? Well, the inflation numbers are out. Before I tell you what the inflation numbers are, let's go back to the last time the Liberals were bragging about how great they were doing with the economy.
Mr. Speaker, I am glad that the Conservatives are finally talking about the economy because it gives me a chance to highlight some good economic news we've had. Last week, we learned that inflation in August was at 2%. In fact, for all of this year, inflation has been within...
You know, I just knew when Chrystia Freeland did that just over a year ago that she was going to regret saying those words. That was the Liberal government bragging about how they've done a great job at managing inflation. Well, the inflation numbers for April are out and they are not good. 25% higher food prices than we need to be paying right now. And that's all because of inflation. Now, in fairness, oil prices are helping to bring up the inflation number overall. These oil prices are crazy. Anybody who gets gas understands that. It is nuts what Canadians are dealing with right now as far as the cost of living is concerned. When inflation goes up, that is a tax on the people, and it's not fair. It's not fair because we have government officials that keep printing money, and that leads to more inflation. And will the government realize, hey, maybe we're printing too much money. Maybe we should find a way to live within our means. Nope. They're going to keep on doing what it is they've been doing. I just wish that somebody in Ottawa would wake up and say, you know what? We can't keep going like this. Over 10 years of these policies that have made life more expensive, just sucking money out of our pockets for over 10 years now. And not once have they thought, maybe we should pivot and do something different. My friends, that's why I think we need a new government. If the government won't pivot to do the right thing, then we need a new government. But we're not having an election right now, so I'll just put a pin in that and leave it where it is. Over the weekend, big news came out of America when the Undersecretary of War announced a strong Canada that prioritizes hard power over rhetoric benefits us all. Unfortunately, Canada has failed to make credible progress on its defense commitments. So the Department of War is pausing the Permanent Joint Board on Defense to assess how this forum benefits shared North American defense priorities. Basically, that's the Americans saying, we don't really want to work with the Canadians on that tight a level. That was where they discussed the nuances, the intricacies of defense for North America. This board that we had. Well, they haven't met, I'm told, since 2024, shortly after Donald Trump got elected, and now the U.S. is pausing that board. And there's a lot of folks in Ottawa who are shocked. What do you mean? The Americans don't want to work with us. What are you talking about? Why wouldn't they want to do that? We're best friends and allies. We've got to defend North America. Okay, I understand why people are asking that question. And if I may, allow me to give you a slightly different perspective than you're getting from the mainstream media on why the U.S. would pull out of this joint defense board. This is about 2 minutes long.
The days of our military sending 70 cents of every dollar to the United States are over.
The progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
Our old relationship with the United States, a relationship based on steadily increasing integration, is over. We recognize that the relationship that Canada has had with the United States, one that for more than 40 years has been based on steadily deepening integration, is over.
From free trade deal through to CUSMA, deepening integration in military aspects. And that process of deepening integration is over.
The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperations, is over. As I've stressed repeatedly, our old relationship, based on steadily increasing integration, is over. Of trade that was anchored on the United States, that we as a country have relied on since the end of the Second World War. A system that, while not perfect, has helped deliver prosperity to our country for decades. That system is over. That the old relationship with the United States that we've had is over. The truth is, over the last few decades, Canada has neither spent enough on our defense nor invested enough in our defense industries. We've relied too heavily on our geography and others to protect us. And this has created vulnerabilities that we can no longer afford, and and dependencies that we can no longer sustain. Hello.
Well, I'm completely stumped. I can't figure out why the Americans are making a break from Canada here. Come on, you just heard it. That was a 2-minute montage of all the different times Mark Carney has said the relationship is over. Did you hear how many times he said it? He said it was over. It's a rupture. That's what he keeps calling it. It's a rupture. Okay, well, there's a consequence to that kind of hyperbole. See, here in Canada, we are still very much in propaganda mode. The only way that Canada can maintain some semblance of elbows up is to keep saying things like, it's a rupture and the old relationship is over. We shouldn't be nostalgic for the past. Those are the things that Mark Carney says because he wants to try and keep Canadians believing it. Before I get to more of the Prime Minister, and there is a little bit more of him coming up, then I'm going to do Donald Trump, and I'm going to talk about the aliens in this episode. A fairly abbreviated version, by the way, because like I said at the beginning of the pod, there's not a lot going on coming out of the long weekend. That's going to change. It's going to be a busy week. There's going to be longer episodes, but today's is probably going to be a little bit shorter just because, well, that's what the content dictates today. Let's talk about this trade war that we're having with the Americans. One of the things that you likely know is that many of Canada's provinces banned U.S. alcohol from the shelves. Well, different provinces are handling that in different ways. You may recall there were some that sold off all of the inventory that they already had of American alcohol, and they donated the money to charity. Well, here in Ontario, we've got a premier who has an insane case of Trump derangement syndrome. He also does not seem to care about taxpayer money. His name is Doug Ford. Now, Doug will tell you he cares about taxpayer money, but if he does, would this be true? New report out says Ontario has about $79 million worth of U.S. alcohol on the shelves. $79.1 million worth of U.S. liquor just sitting there. I'm talking bourbon. I'm talking Napa wine. You name it. It is just sitting there. All these expensive tequilas that we don't even have or probably don't even know about because they're banned in Ontario because that was how various governments in Canada decided they wanted to fight back against the Americans. And, you know, not for nothing, that is having a bit of an impact. There are some states in America that are pressuring Donald Trump to hurry up and figure this out because they want their alcohol products back on Canadian store shelves. Well, in Ontario, that $79 million worth of liquor that's just sitting there is apparently costing us up to $20 million a year to keep in storage. $20 million a year. And let's be honest, whoever is charging $20 million for a warehouse, that's crazy. I have no idea why we would agree to do that. I have no idea why we would be paying for separate warehousing when all of the LCBOs have areas where they can store stuff, refrigerated and everything. This shouldn't even be a concern. We know stuff is getting stolen and it is getting broken and things like that. We're losing a ton of money. The taxpayers paid $79 million for that alcohol. Now it's $20 million to store it. And is anybody in power paying attention to that amount? $20 million a year to store that alcohol rather than just sell it off, return it to the manufacturer. Hey, if we're not going to sell U.S. alcohol, I've been very clear from the start, that is a mistake. They didn't do it to us. And by the way, if they did ban Canadian alcohol from the States, if they decided to retaliate that way, that would be devastating for Canadian alcohol manufacturers. But that aside, if we've decided to take a principled stance and we're not going to sell U.S. liquor, why would we intentionally shoot ourselves in the foot by costing the taxpayers $20 million a year to store something worth $80 million that what? We're just going to throw out eventually? Sell it off. Return it. Stop spending $20 million a year on something stupid. You want to prove a point? Fine. I disagree with it. But this is crazy to leave $80 million worth of taxpayer money tied up here and another $20 million a year just to store it. Now, speaking of alcohol, it was announced today by the Ontario government that with the World Cup now just a few weeks away, they're going to extend bar hours until 4 a.m. 4 a.m. last call. That is compared to the 2 a.m. last call that happens in Ontario now. You know, we've seen this done before. We've seen it done many times before. When the Olympics is on, they'll open the bars early or they'll let them stay open late. Big events, they'll extend the bar hours. My question to you is, do we or don't we need booze to have a good time? That's what I'd like to know. I mean booze in an establishment, because everyone understands you could go to a gas station and buy alcohol, drink it in your hotel room, take it to a park. You can do whatever you want with it now. Do we need bars open until 4 a.m. because of the World Cup? And if we do, why aren't they always open until 4 a.m.? How come we're constantly moving the goalpost here on last call whenever it seems like the rest of the world is paying attention? Uh-oh, we've got company coming over. Better extend the bar hours and not let them know how boring we are all the rest of the time. No, people should know. You come to Canada, we close our bars at 2 a.m. That's just all there is to it. We don't extend it. We don't make exceptions. We serve from 11 a.m. until 2 a.m. Those are the hours that you can get a drink in Ontario. And you know what? If we're going to acknowledge that alcohol makes things better, it creates a better night out, it's better for tourists when they're visiting town, then why don't we have those bars open until 4 a.m. all the time? It makes no sense to keep extending it when we think people are paying attention. Hey, listen, I know there's some people who hear bars are going to be open till 4 a.m. and they automatically think the worst. Oh my God, there's going to be increased drinking and driving and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, that's a possibility. Although in the past, I don't think we've seen that. In this particular case, I want to know why we keep putting on different clothes when different people are coming over. No, we're boring. We close our bars at 2 a.m. And if you're coming to visit, you've got to be stuck with the 2 a.m. last call as well. We're not extending the bar hours just because of X, Y, or Z. Either leave the bars open until 4 a.m. or, and hear me out on this, let's just acknowledge the fact that the old way of doing things is old. A lot of people used to work 9 to 5. The vast majority of people used to work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Well, that's all changed. People are working 3 shifts now. We've got people working on weekends. There's people out at 5 o'clock in the morning. There's people out at 9 o'clock at night. They shouldn't have to wonder, where am I going to get something to eat or where can I get a drink? We all work hard. Leave the bars open. Let the bars decide when they want to be open. I think it's silly to keep adjusting last call based on silly events. Let's acknowledge the reality. We all work different hours. And sometimes you want to drink after work. Hey, if I just finished a busy shift as a paramedic and I had one hell of a night and I get off work at 7 a.m. and think, man, a nice martini would go a long way, I should be able to get that. I shouldn't be punished that I had to do the overnight shift. Let's get some common sense rules in place here, because constantly moving the goalpost, that's not working for me, and I think it sends the wrong message that most of the time we're boring. Sometimes, if there's an event, we'll liven up a little bit, but for the most part, the bars close down at 2 a.m., they open at 11, and that's the end of the story. Or is it 10 a.m. now? I can't even keep track, and to be honest with you, I don't go for many drinks at 10 a.m. anyway, but I know that there's people who probably would. Let the bars and restaurants open up if they think there's a market for it. Now I'm going to move on. The Prime Minister was speaking over the weekend, and he didn't have a whole lot to say, but this was an interesting clip that I want to play for you. It's an exchange with reporters. Here's the Prime Minister.
News. I'm wondering if you could tell us what, in terms of figures, are the actual emissions reductions you expect out of today's deal, and then what is your message to environmental groups who have a long list of releases right now calling this deal today a betrayal, a bulldozing of environmental protections, gutting a major climate tool, harming our future, and abandoning international commitments, and putting net zero by 2050 firmly out of reach?
Well, first, let me start at the end and let me go through it. What we have today is an agreement between the Government of Canada and the Government of Alberta committing to net zero 2050. Both of us committing to net zero 2050. Not committing in a speech, not committing rhetorically, committing with a series of investments and commitments and market frameworks that are going to move the province, going to move the country towards low emission and to net zero.
Going to pause the Prime Minister there and give you a little context. Right before the long weekend, the Prime Minister and the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, announced they were taking another step towards building a pipeline. Now, we're still years and years away from that actually happening, even though I think most people agree we need a pipeline. We need to start getting our oil out to market. One of the hangups here from the federal government is, and you've just heard the Prime Minister describe what an environmentalist he is. You got to remember that. He's the same as Trudeau. He wants low carbon oil. He maintains the countries that would buy our oil won't buy it unless we have a carbon tax in place. Unless we are committed to net zero, they won't buy our oil. Doesn't matter if we're the most reliable provider. Doesn't matter if we've got the best price or the lowest dollar to buy against. They just plain won't buy it unless we have green oil. That's where the Prime Minister's going with this. That's why he has held up this entire project and why he's going to continue holding up this project until he gets all of the environmental pieces in place. And what that's done is two things. Number one, you've got those who want a pipeline and want to start getting our product out to market and making Canada a very prosperous place again. They're angry at how long it's going to take if we even build this pipeline. Then you've got the environmentalists who are saying Mark Carney has completely betrayed us. He is not an environmentalist in any way if he's even talking about building a pipeline. And now that he's extended our net zero commitment to 2050. I thought net zero was off the table. You know, in good times, we could talk about that. But when things are as bad as they are, you would think that we would be talking solely about getting our product out to market, increasing the GDP, selling more of what Canada has to offer, and signing more deals with different countries around the world. That's what you would think we would be doing. But no, we're still very much rooted in Mark Carney's environmental ideology.
Net zero, the environment respects or is a function of emissions. It's physics. It's what actually happens. And in order to change what actually happens, you have to go out in that room. You have to get some of those apprentices when they get their Red Seal trades. You have to go to a job site. You have to build things like the Oil Sands Alliance Pathways Project, which is going to take 16 megatons of carbon out of the atmosphere every year, equivalent of 90% of the cars coming off the road in Alberta. Every year. Once you take 90% off, you can't take another 9, but you get the point. It's moving to a carbon market that functions. Let's put this in context. Before we started these negotiations, before the MOU, the carbon price trading in the tier market was $20. Okay? Not the $95, now $110 of the headline price. $20. That was the actual price. That's the actual price that determines the investment decision of businesses. Now, what are we doing? We're putting in place frameworks, changing the way the market works, a floor price, contracts for differences, skin in the game from the government of Alberta, skin in the game from the government of Canada, so that we have a functioning market. We have an effective price, 2040, that's 6.5 times that price that it was before the MOU. I'll tell you something else, which is that the fact of the MOU, the fact that we're making progress, the fact that the government of Alberta, the government of Canada are both committed to developing a real carbon market has moved the carbon price up. It's $40 now, right? This is not just correlation. It's actually consistent with the market moving forward. So when you look at and I'll give you one last thing to answer your question, which is that the pipeline to Asia, as we know, the process of bringing oil out of the oil sands, the SAGD process, other processes, and shipping creates emissions, so-called Scope 1, Scope 2 emissions. This deal more than compensates for those emissions.
Sounds like we are going heavy on the environmental ideology, doesn't it? How much more expensive is that going to make our gas and oil? Why would we do that to ourselves when we're competing against the Emiratis and the Saudis and the Russians and the Venezuelans and you name it, all the different places that oil come from? I would think most countries would probably prefer to buy from a reliable partner like Canada. But if we're going to intentionally build environmental ideology and the cost that goes with that into the price of oil, why are we even having this conversation? Has one country said, you know what, we would love to buy Canadian oil, but you don't have a carbon tax, so we're not going to buy your oil? Not one of them. Not one country has said that. Mark Carney is creating a special carbon market. This is going to be a shining example for other countries. It's environmental ideology. It makes things more expensive. This is unacceptable. Why are we getting in our own way? Why are we doing that? We should be trying to be the most competitive nation on earth. And we probably could be if we didn't hamstring ourselves with all these unnecessary regulations that, as I talked about last week, probably aren't going to make a huge difference anyway.
It never happens at a good time. The pipe bursts at midnight. The heater quits on the coldest night. Suddenly, you're overwhelmed. That's when HomeServe is here. For $4.99 a month, you're never alone. Just call their 24/7 hotline and a local pro is on the way. Trusted by millions, HomeServe delivers peace of mind when you need it most. For plans starting at just $4.99 a month, go to homeserve.com. That's homeserve.com. Not available everywhere. Most plans range between $4.99 to $11.99 a month your first year. Terms apply on covered repairs.
Over the weekend, Dominic LeBlanc, he's the main guy in charge of trading with the Americans and getting a deal done. He was on Rosemary Barton Live on the CBC.
I just want to quickly ask you before you go where the heck things are with the United States. You've got this July 1st NAFTA review deadline, which I think everyone agrees is not going to be met, but talks will continue. But can you tell me when those formal talks for the review are going to start? Are we close to that happening, Minister?
So we continue, Rosemary, to have a series of active and positive conversations at many levels with our American counterparts. Our chief negotiator, Madame Charette, spent last week in Washington, had a number of very high-level and we think successful or constructive conversations in terms of advancing our understanding of what would be important to recommit to the review of the CUSMA agreement. The conversations are ongoing. I expect to be in Washington, if not next week, then early the week after, to see Ambassador Greer. The Mexicans are beginning a technical table, a formal technical conversation in 2 weeks. We'll get to that point as well, but we're going to get to that point, Rosemary, when we think that there's a path to get a deal that's in Canada's interest, and we're not prepared to concede a whole bunch of things to get into a meeting to find that there's another list of things that we're supposed to give the United States.
Doesn't sound like things are going very well. That sounded very defensive. The Mexicans are at the table. They're having those conversations. Canada should be there too. It should be a trilateral discussion, technically, if we're renegotiating NAFTA, essentially. Why aren't we at the table? Because there's certain things that our federal government will not compromise on. And you know what? That's okay. That is totally okay. I respect it. There's certain things that you just believe in so much that they're non-negotiable. Well, can we talk about what those things are, though? You know, our sovereignty. That should be non-negotiable. Whether we do or don't have supply management on dairy, I don't know that that's really the hill we want to fall on here. Whether we do or don't want to have a digital services tax, I don't know if that's necessarily the hill we want to fall on either. We've really got to figure out what our priorities are and what we stand for in this country. We've just got to do it. Over the weekend, Fox News did an interesting report, and I'm going to play a little bit of it. It's from Jesse Waters' Primetime. He was talking about some of the things that have been discovered in the UFO files. See, the U.S. government released it, and I didn't really talk about it too much last week because I learned from the JFK and MLK files, I learned from the Epstein files, that the first look is never going to produce much that's tangible. People need to do a deep dive. Everything that I saw come out of the U.S. UFO files were things that I'd already seen online. Doesn't seem like there's anything new here, and it doesn't seem like the U.S. government is actually admitting to anything. I'm going to play for you just 1 minute of a news report from Fox News. Again, this is Jesse Waters this weekend.
We are not alone. The Pentagon released the UFO files a few weeks back, and we just found out over 1 billion people have visited the site. 1 billion. It's got to be a record. The War Department says more files will be released soon. UFO experts and top researchers have been investigating aliens for years. Their sources say dozens of crashed UFOs have been recovered, and what they found inside? Shocking.
And do people think that there's one type of non-human intelligence that's visiting the Earth, or is there many, many types?
People who have been involved in recoveries have said
there are at least 4 separate types. Now, I have not had direct access to that, but I believe the people who I talked to.
4 different types of life.
4 different types of life.
Okay, that was just a little bit of the report that they aired. Let me give you the Coles Notes condensed version. That was using a little bit of audio from a few experts that were on the Diary of a CEO podcast. There's 4 types of aliens that have visited the Earth. 4 types. Some of them lizard people. Actual lizard people. They look like walking dinosaurs. They, them, I don't know what the pronouns are for these extraterrestrial beings. There's 4 different types that have visited the Earth. Apparently, we've had contact. We've had detailed discussions. Some of them have lived. Some of them have died. But that's where it stops. Hey, U.S. government, I appreciate you trying to be a little more candid. I appreciate you trying to be a little more forthcoming in letting us know that we're not alone in the universe. But God, you've got to tell us more than this. You can't just release some photos and say, yeah, we have no idea what it is. We know that you've been in contact with them. There have been discussions with them. You've studied them. Why is that part still a secret? That, I think, by and large, is what people want to know. To what extent has the U.S. government, the Canadian government, the Chinese, the Russians, the Indians, you name it, to what extent have they been dealing with these aliens? And where are they? Why can't we know where the crash sites are? Why can't we know if we still have some in captivity? I'm led to believe they do a lot with the ocean here on Earth. I'm led to believe they can travel through water incredibly quickly. In fact, there may be more below the surface of the ocean than we could ever comprehend. Entire societies. Where is the disclosure on that, U.S. government? Will you at least deny it if it's not true? Or will you confirm it if it is true? One or the other. Leaving people hanging like this, especially when 1 billion people went to the website to try and view the UFO files, and they didn't get anything good out of that. We need more. So to whoever is listening in the U.S. government, I'm sure you do. There's got to be somebody that pays attention to podcasts. Get on it. Let's get that info out there. The president did a surprising news conference over the weekend. One of the people that he was there with, none other than Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban, a lot of people had speculated, would eventually run for president for the Democrats. He endorsed Kamala Harris. Now he's working with Donald Trump and the Trump administration. Yeah, the Mark Cuban. Listen to this.
It's pretty remarkable seeing you and Mark Cuban up there, and the fact that obviously Mark endorsed Kamala Harris back in 2020.
Well, he made a mistake. It was a big mistake.
What does this say about what you two are building here?
Well, it says we love people. We love our country. He's got a good company, and he's going to do a lot of business with this. And I'm going to get drugs out through Amazon, through the whole group, and we're going to get drugs out. And Mark wanted to be a part of it. And I think Mark was very gracious. He said, this is something that really works. The first time you've seen it. And he had to believe that if he said it about me. You have to understand that. But look, I think I have a lot of respect for Mark, frankly, and I always have.
And then, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, very interesting because they have definitely been at odds a number of times over the years. Mark Cuban now teamed up with Donald Trump to try and bring down the cost of medication for Americans. Hey, this is something that used to be a top-of-mind political issue in Canada, too. The price of drugs is too expensive, especially when you don't have drug coverage through work. Got to do something to get the cost of these prescriptions down. I think a lot of people are aware if you want those Ozempics and Mounjaros of the world, yeah, you got to pay for those. But I mean drugs that can actually save somebody's life. Diabetes medication. And so many more. Like, you name it. There's a lot of drugs that people take all the time, and they're going bankrupt trying to afford their prescriptions. These drug companies are making insane profits. Why not bring down the cost? That's what they're working on in America. Here's Mark Cuban.
You've been long rumored and mentioned as someone who might run for president one day. We're here at the White House. Is this making you consider those ambitions again?
Hell no.
Too hot? No?
That's too hot in here. No, I'm all about reducing the cost of healthcare. To me, that's my ultimate legacy.
Mark, you've been very critical of Donald Trump in the past, called him the most unethical, lacked character, dishonest person you've ever done business with. Obviously, you're now partnering with him. Has your opinion of him changed? Can you just talk a little bit about your
that was last season, right? What you say during an election cycle is obviously going to be completely different. But now the goal is the goal. The goal is to reduce the cost of healthcare, and we're 100% aligned. I mean, in talking to him, there was, Mark, are you going to help us reduce the cost of healthcare for everybody? Yes. Okay, we're going to do this together, and I'm like, let's go, right? The goal is the goal.
And do you disagree? Do you agree the president said today that you regret endorsing Kamala Harris?
He was playing.
Do you regret
I'm not going to go there. It doesn't matter.
Mark, would you still like to see Democrats win back the House and the Senate?
I'm sorry?
Would you still like to see the Democrats win back the House and the Senate in
I'm
these
not going to
midterms?
go there at all. My politics don't matter to this at all.
Can you clarify one more point on the drug pricing? Is the entire...
Well, listen to that. The things you say during an election cycle are different from the things when you're actually living in the reality of being governed by the person who won. Very, very interesting comments there from Mark Cuban. He refused to throw Donald Trump under the bus. And it's true. Mark Cuban has been one of the most fierce critics of Donald Trump. But you know what? When it's a good goal, when it's something that benefits everybody, we should be able to put politics aside and work together for the greater good. I think that should be the ultimate goal for all governments. Put the partisanship aside. Let's figure out a problem. And you know what? Sometimes you got to deal with somebody that you don't like. You probably know that from business or family. Sometimes you don't really like them, but you just kind of have to. It's obligatory. You got to get along. Well, you know what? Maybe we here in Canada could learn a lesson from that example. We don't necessarily have to like Donald Trump, and I know there's a lot of people who don't. But maybe we hold our nose and try and get a deal done that's good for them and good for us. Could we do that? Or are there still too many people that are just too angry with Donald Trump? I don't know where we're at now, but it does seem like they're making some progress down there. That's good. Make those drugs much, much, much more affordable for the American people. And hopefully that has some spillover effect here in Canada. Here is Health and Human Services Secretary Bobby Kennedy.
President Clinton promised to do it. President Biden promised to do it. President Obama promised to do it. President Trump actually got it done. And it's an extraordinary accomplishment. It's an extraordinary legacy for him, and it's a gift to the American people. And I want to thank you again for your vision and for your determination.
It's true. A lot of presidents have been saying for a long time, we're going to bring down the cost of prescription drugs. They never actually came down. It was just a promise, and people heard they were going to do it, and they just assumed it got done. The newsflash, it didn't. One more. Here's Mark Cuban talking again. This is him at the White House news conference.
Thank you for having me, Mr. President. I think other than you, I've been the biggest proponent of TrumpRx.com. And the reason for that is Republicans want cheaper drugs, independents want cheaper drugs, Democrats want cheaper drugs, and together, I think we're going to do something special. What makes Cost Plus Drugs different is that when you click through TrumpRx to our site, not only will you see a great price, but you'll see our actual cost and that we only mark it up 15%. And what makes this incredible, Mr. President, all the volume and all the people that are going to come from the site, as our volumes go up, our costs go down, which means we'll be ending up charging less to people over a period of time. So this is a special announcement. This is a special partnership. 559 of those drugs are ours, so we're really excited to be part of this. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for having me.
559 drugs that are all going to be coming down in price dramatically. Cost plus 15%. Can I just float this out here? Just something to think about. One of the things that I've been very vocal about is I don't think there should be any tax whatsoever on food. Think back to when we had the GST holiday in Canada 2 years ago. How great was it to be able to go into a restaurant, and if the combo cost $7.99, the price was $7.99. There shouldn't be tax on food. It's something we all need, whether it's cooked, whether it's raw, whether it's at a restaurant, whether it's at a grocery store. I don't think our government should be making money off of us eating. Let me take it a step further. Can we go a step further? How about anything to do with healthcare is not for profit? It's illegal to make a profit. We can create legislation like that. For example, there's new legislation in Ontario that makes it illegal to make money if you resell a ticket to something. If you've got Toronto Maple Leafs season's tickets and face value on them is $150, you can't sell them for more than $150. If you sell them for $175, you've broken the law. Why can't we impose the same thing on people in the healthcare industry? Make them not for profit. Hey, listen, if you want to create a new drug and it's going to be very beneficial to society, great. Thank you very much. You'll get paid well for having developed the drug. But the ongoing sale of the drug, not for profit. Let's have generic versions of every drug without the mandatory waiting period. Throw out all of the intellectual property and let's get people healthy again. All of them. Drugs should be affordable. Nice to see them making some changes down there in America. Friends, that's my time for today, but welcome to a new week. It's just getting started, and it is going to be a busy one, nearest I can tell. Have yourselves a great one. I'll catch you right back here in less than 24 hours with more Scott Fox after 9. Tell a friend, hit subscribe. If you haven't already, leave a rating. 5 stars would be amazing, and enjoy the sounds of Pat James and The Whole Truth. Hey now. Oh.